All right, let's bring in Steve Hilton now. Steve Hilton's just fresh off outnumbered yesterday, right?
There you
Steve?
go.
You survived.
I did, and I'm here.
And you played the role of the man.
To prove it, exactly.
All right, so...
Now I'm outnumbered.
Right? I know. How do you feel about that?
I'm liking it.
Right,
he was a strategist. If you haven't seen him before, you've been under a rock because he's been on the channel a number of times. He helped with David Cameron over in UK and the Brexit thing. And,
yes. And then I didn't help him by campaigning for Brexit.
All right.
Which he didn't appreciate.
And CEO of CrowdPack and a Fox News contributor.
Yeah.
And you're from the UK. We're
yes.
talking about border issues today. Donald
yes.
Trump's focusing on immigration. Loose borders over in Europe. How's that going for European countries?
Well, that whole policy of open borders has basically been a disaster for Europe. It's been a disaster economically because it's allowed so much cheap, unskilled labor to flood into various countries and undermining the economy and people's living standards.
Is it jacking up the unemployment in certain countries then?
It's just the same sort of impact you're having here with uncontrolled immigration, which is that people feel really resentful that actually jobs that used to be available are not. But the real problem, I think, that can be dealt with, but the real problem that in Europe is so significant is the security impact,
yep.
the way that you've had not just security made worse inside Europe, but by saying come to Europe to anyone in the Middle East, it's increased the instability in the Middle East.
And it's, all these current leaders are now in jeopardy. Right now, as Angela Merkel and her party are taking a pounding, and she struggles for another term. And now we see this story today in the New York Times, which I understand Donald Trump reads. It turns out this Dutch leader, who's been there since 2010, is channeling Donald Trump, making a statement to the 6% of the population who's Muslim, essentially. If you reject our country so fundamentally, I prefer you leave.
You see, that's really interesting. I know that guy. We work with him, and you know, he's a pretty reasonable mainstream
politician.
Talked like this
before.
He never did before, and it shows how worried he is. And you've got elections there this year. You've got elections in Germany. It's going to be a big year in Europe, where all these policies that have done so much damage are really going to be under the spotlight.
And it shows you the Donald Trump effect. You know,
yes.
he has referred to it as a movement in this country. Maybe it's not just in this country.
Well, I think that's exactly right, and we'll see it also hopefully changing things when Theresa May comes here in a couple of days. And I think that's another chance to really show the change that can happen and to really do something really big, which is to democratize globalization.
What can the U.S. gain from having this meeting with her? You are that country is our oldest ally.
Well, to show that the days of an international bureaucracy, all the technocratic elites who make policy with these complicated agreements that no one can understand, that the insiders get their teeth into and they can lobby and get good deals for them while the people lose out. Those days are over, and it's back to democratic countries, sovereign nations doing good deals with each other that benefit their people. That's the big opportunity.
What does it mean to the Brits? What does it mean to Theresa May that they're first? They're first to come over and visit and establishing that relationship?
Well, it's just a huge opportunity for her, because what she needs to show is that Brexit is going to be good for the British economy, it's going to be good for jobs and good for trade, rather than the way that those, just like here in the election, where you've got people who just can't accept the result. They can't accept that people actually voted for Trump. There are so many people who can't accept that people wanted to leave in Britain, leave the European Union. Now, she's got to show that actually that's going to lead to improved living standards there in the UK, and I think a trade deal with America is the best way of showing that.
Steve, before you go, regarding Brexit, there was something in the news over there where a judge said, yeah, Parliament's got to vote on it or something like that. Is there a possibility that while the people voted for it, the Parliament may not?
I don't think that's a possibility. There's something called the Supreme Court. Now, anyone watching shouldn't assume it's like our Supreme Court here. This is a bunch of legal cronies appointed behind closed doors. It's not the same thing. But Parliament is going to have to vote. Now, it's possible that the elected representatives vote against the will of the people expressed in the referendum, but if they do, there really will be a revolution.
Time to get the pitchforks.
Exactly, and I don't think that's going to happen. So all this court case, I think, is just a massive waste of time.
And the last American president said, don't do this, Britain, and the new American president says, I'm glad you did this, Britain.
It's a huge change. Obama said, if you do this, you'll be at the back of the line for a trade deal, and Trump's the exact opposite, and that's good news for Britain and America.
Theresa May is at the front of the line. She'll be there Friday. All right,
Thank you, Steve.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.